They thought the Husky was acting out because of jealousy. They were so certain and so completely wrong that they almost made an irreversible decision. Everything started the week after the younger sister came home from the hospital. Celia was 2.5, newly displaced from her position as the only child, navigating that particular confusion with the tools available to a 2.5-year-old. Intermittent meltdowns followed by periods of fierce affection toward anyone within reach. Their Siberian Husky, a 4-year-old named Frost, had always been Celia's shadow. He slept near her door. He followed her from room to room. When she cried, he came. That pattern held. But something in the quality of his attention had shifted. Lena Casimir noticed it first. When Celia cried now, any cry, even small frustration cries, even the theatrical ones that had a clear cause and were going to stop in 40 seconds, Frost came immediately. Not the relaxed amble of a dog responding to familiar noise. Fast, purposeful. And then he would press his face towards Celia's face with an intensity that made the back of Lena's neck tighten. Not aggressive, not tense, just immovable. His blue eyes focused on the girl's face with the quality of attention that felt like reading rather than reacting. Celia would stop crying after a few moments. She would look at the dog. Sometimes she laughed. Sometimes she pushed his face away. He would return within seconds and resume the same position. Lena's husband, Jerome, watched it for 3 days and proposed an explanation that felt clean and logical. Frost was jealous of the new baby, unable to handle Celia's distress, overreacting to any emotional shift in the house because the household chemistry had changed. Jerome was a data analyst. He liked explanations that accounted for all the variables. This one accounted for all the variables. They called a trainer. The trainer came on a Wednesday, watched Frost for 30 minutes, and said what Lena had already read online. It looked like emotional contagion combined with attention-seeking behavior. She recommended management and redirection. She scheduled a follow-up. They managed. They redirected. Frost would be sent to another room when Celia cried. He would return to the living room when Celia had calmed. It seemed like progress. The problem was that they had defined progress as the dog staying away from the child, and they had never once asked why the dog kept going back. Subscribe now, because that question, the one they didn't ask, is the entire story. 3 weeks in, Celia had a harder day than usual. New sibling adjustment, disrupted routine, a nap that didn't take. She cried several times through the afternoon. Each time Frost came. Each time he was redirected. Each time he went to wherever they sent him and waited for the door to open. At 8:30 in the evening, with both children finally asleep, Frost began pacing. Not the circular, unfocused pacing of an anxious dog, something directional, purposeful, between the hallway and the children's bedroom door, back and forth, without pause. Jerome watched him for 2 minutes and went to check on the girls. The baby was fine. Celia was not. She was in her bed, eyes open and unfocused, not responding to her name. Her temperature was 103.2. She was making small sounds that were not words and not crying, a flatness that Jerome recognized as wrong before he had the language for why. He called out for Lena. His voice came out at the wrong volume. The emergency room that night. Celia was running a fever that had climbed fast and silent from beneath a day that looked like ordinary toddler difficulty. The infection, a UTI that had progressed to a kidney infection, had been building invisibly for days. The fever, when it arrived, moved with the speed that infections in small children sometimes move, faster than a parent's timeline, faster than a thermometer check at bedtime would have caught. The ER nurse who assessed Celia, a woman named Petra Solis, 12 years in pediatric emergency, looked at Jerome's description of the dog's behavior and asked, how long had he been doing that? Jerome thought about it. 3 weeks. Petra wrote something in the chart. She didn't look up when she said, probably about as long as she's been fighting this. Has your dog ever paced, or circled, or positioned itself in a way that felt purposeful but made no sense at the time? Tell us below. We want to hear it. Dogs detect infection through the volatile compounds that altered immune activity produces in sweat, breath, and skin chemistry. A urinary tract infection in a child produces specific detectable chemical changes that begin well before the child is symptomatic in any way a parent can measure. Frost had been reading those changes in Celia for 3 weeks. Every time she cried, every time the chemical output intensified as it does when a body under stress releases cortisol and additional inflammatory compounds. He came to read her more closely. Every time they sent him away, they silenced the only measurement device in the house that was actually calibrated for this. Celia was admitted for 48 hours. She came home on antibiotics and fruit snacks, and the specific triumphant energy of a toddler who has been the center of everyone's attention for 2 days. Frost met her at the door. He lowered his head and pressed his nose to her arm, inhaled slowly. Then he stepped back and sat, clean, resolved, a number that had been wrong for 3 weeks reading correct for the first time. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who waited at every door they were sent away from. If these stories matter to you, subscribe. The next story on this channel involves a dog who made a sound no one in the family had ever heard before, and what it meant. Jerome sat in the hospital parking lot the second morning and thought about the trainer. The follow-up appointment was still on his calendar. He deleted it that afternoon. He did not replace it. He thought about what it would mean to train a dog out of the one behavior that had been the only accurate signal in the house. He thought about expertise, about how much he trusted it, and what it was built from. The trainer had 20 years of experience with dogs and had never seen what Frost was doing in the context of infection detection. Her framework did not include it. Neither had his, neither, until that week had theirs. Lena came home from the hospital on a Thursday with Celia asleep on her shoulder and a new understanding of the gap between what she thought she knew and what was actually happening in her own house. She did not say anything to Jerome about it. She did not need to. Frost met them at the door, pressed his nose briefly to Celia's arm, and exhaled. Then he walked to his bed and lay down. The particular composure of an animal whose job is done for now.